Okay. So for the first question that he has to do some like a sentence assignment on. In the lecture, I talk about why visions of a nation state were tough to satisfy in the 19th century Europe, what made it difficult. Um, I kind of thought that like in his lecture, he had mentioned that like the decision of um like where to draw like the territory lines were something that made it hard for the like to like actually like determine a nation state. Um, and I thought that was also because of like some um ethnic issues as well as like just rivalries in history that like contributed to that kind of.
Yeah, I also talked about how like the language map that he put on the screen like showed how difficult it would be to
Yeah.
like, create the nation states with all the different language barriers and ethnicities. And I also like talked about how it was hard in defining like the nationalities and how nation building comes into being.
Yeah.
Yeah, I also kind of talked about how the different like dialects and the language barriers between everyone and just like how all like with the different wars and stuff, all of the borders kept changing. So then it's like how do you define
Hmm.
which group is part of which group?
Yeah, I agree. Okay. Oh, now we need to watch the video if everyone wants to get that. Shoot, sorry, my Blackboard logged me out. Okay, I got it.
All
Wait,
right, so is everyone ready?
yeah.
Okay.
Um, Something I had when I was watching this earlier, um, I thought that what was the question exactly? Um, display how it plays, discuss how it plays how it matters to today's topic, nationalism as a school of utopian thought in the 19th century. Um, I kind of thought the main, like from watching this, that from also like his lecture, that there's a lot of historical like reasoning behind how a bunch of different changes through time created like I guess uncertainty of where like the nation state's territory should be drawn. Um, and like as we talked about kind of before, like the culture and the language also went into that. That's what I saw as like we are watching as I was watching it.
And I thought it was interesting too, like watching that video made me think back to the lecture um when he talked about how if like the Germans were like talking about like wherever you hear the German tongue is how we're gonna determine the territory, but
Yeah.
they would go throughout the like everywhere, so it would make it seem like everything was just Germany.
Mm,
Yeah, I was also thinking about how like in the 1300s and the 1400s, you can see all like tiny little nation states, but then as you kept going to like more modern, it's they all kind of group together into these larger nation states. So you can see how like difficult that is because they all had their own culture and then now they're all grouped together. So that would be difficult in creating like just to I'm so sorry, my thoughts. Um like going back to the question we had to write the sentence about, that is a difficulty in creating these nation states.
mhm. The next one is Rutter compares ethnic and civic nationalisms in his lecture. How would you say ethnic liberty differs from civic liberty? Liberty from what to what? So kind of my takeaway from the two liberties that he had mentioned was kind of like I kind of just like put themes with them where I thought ethnic liberty was like talking a lot about territory and civic liberty was like idea of it. Um and like the ethnic liberty kind of talked about like cultural heritage and like traditions that went into that because they had different backgrounds that like contributed to that territory, I guess. Um and then civic liberty, I think that was kind of more of I thought it was a little more like law, like constitutions and like agreements and that kind of stuff related to it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for that one, like I was a little bit, it took me a very long time to answer it, but I like kind of saw ethnic liberty as like liberties that you're born with, like through your like culture and like and they like just like like that's the liberties that you have in life, like and people like if you want to join that like culture, like you're never really considered like a full citizen, like you definitely like looked at differently. And civic liberty is like relating to a citizen who has like willingly joined or moved to a new society or has been born in it but like holds the right to leave without any judgment, and they abide by the ideals of the place that they intend to live.
Mm.
I also thought about that quote that you just said because for ethnic liberty, I had said that more about like changes, like how it said that you can change your nation and like who your people are, like not necessarily your ancestry, but if you wanted to move to another country, you could. And then civic liberty, I was kind of talking about how we have the ability to change our ideas, like we can vote and like use our voice to make laws and get rid of laws based off of our nation's ideas.
Yeah. How about equality? How is ethnic equality different from civic equality? And which is the US having a harder time with right now, would you say? Civic liberty or civic equality? And if someone wants to mention ethnic liberty or equality, they can. Um, I thought how's equality? Oh, um, I thought ethnic equality and civic equality were kind of different because ethnic equality referred to like the fairness of people or like between groups and I guess nation states for the sake of like what we're talking about. Um, and like their cultural backgrounds from that perspective, and that it like talks about promote like the equality would be approaching like a diverse and inclusive representation of each background, I guess. Um, and civic equality, I think civic equality is when like he had the example of the Pledge of Allegiance, right? Was that when I think where I kind of thought that it was I related to like civic duty where you have like it's like a communal thing, but like from a political aspect where you kind of like we have that equality of all having that freedom, like the Pledge of Allegiance and that kind of aspect.
Yeah, I also wrote for civic equality. I put liberty and justice for all from the Pledge of Allegiance because I just feel like it fit with that because the idea is that like we all have the same rights or freedoms under the law. And then I kind of said for ethnic equality that like individuals of like all ethnicities are treated equally. So I said that the US is probably having a harder time with that because of like the issues of racism in our country.
Yeah, I talked about how I feel like civic equality is more based on like everyone is equal no matter like your ethnicity or whatever. But for ethnic equality, I feel like through your like subgroup is where everyone's equal. And then like everyone else kind of looks at other people differently. And I
Yeah.
thought we have a harder time achieving civic equality or ethnic equality.
Yeah, I also had the same. I also thought that it was ethnic equality that we were for pretty much the same reasons as both you said. Um, and he hadn't mentioned it, but it was just like something that I thought about was like in today's world is like social justice movements, like with like different races and like ethnicities and that kind of stuff. Um, and then that's it for his lecture. Then moving from Europe to America, what do you think of O'Sullivan's 1839 essay, and what's a line that struck you and how? Um, I thought the essay kind of like paired nicely with what he had mentioned in his lecture. Like I could understand connections between the two. There was a line that said, "American patriotism is not of soil. We are not. I think it's Aborigines. I have no idea. Nor of ancestry, for we are all of nations, but is essentially personal enfranchisement. For where liberty dwells, says Franklin, the sage of revolution, there is my country." And I thought that was kind of like attesting to how like we're not patriotism or like nationalism isn't of specific like talking about like land, but it's more of like the commitment to trying to um like achieve liberty and individual freedom, which I know like we talked about liberty a lot. Um, and also like it was kind of going into like the ethnic side of things, that there's a bunch of different groups of people that have different backgrounds that have that dedication to like want to achieve, civic liberty, equality, ethnic are the same things. So that's why I kind of thought that line stood out to me for those reasons.
I thought that the text was really like, I don't know, it was like hard to get through, but I thought it was interesting. The whole thing, like the whole idea of it, like how he was like kind of talking about denouncing like our like history and just like looking to the future. And I thought like the how many nations have had their decline and fall because the equal rights of the minority were trampled on by the despotism of the majority. I thought that was interesting and like really highlights how important equality is to keep a nation from falling.
Hmm.
Yeah, I agree. I think that quote was like really important to like the nation that it was trying to build. I actually had I had the same quote written down as you, Lauren. Um, that American patriotism is not of soil, nor of ancestry, for we are of all nations. Because that just reminded me back to the civic and ethnic nationalism that we were talking about, because since our ethnicities are so different and we're coming together as one, the civic nationalism was kind of more important because we were coming together under the same idea. So the fact that this equality was so much more important since we were all coming from different lands and territories.
Hmm. Yeah, I agree. And then lastly, the Jeep ad. Um, where do you see where do you see equality and freedom in the ad, and what about civic or ethnic and civic nationalism in the ad? I just kind of pulled like some quotes that I thought related to each of them. So like for equality, one of the lines that he said was, "Whoever you are, wherever you're from, it's what connects us and what we need, and we need that connection." So I kind of thought that was um I guess I thought that there was more of like civic equality than not as much of ethnic equality in the um but I guess this can kind of like wherever you're from can kind of attest to like the ethnic side. But I kind of thought that related to that whatever connects us, we need that connection. That means like wherever you come from, we can still like level up to that same field that like it's just like a whole.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I like also talked about how like people have the freedom to enter it whenever they feel like it. and it like represented civic nationalism for me. And I was thinking about how now in America we're like trying to like we're like constantly divided and have begun to show like ethnic nationalism by creating borders between the countries and creating like an extremely difficult test to permit US residency for people who are seeking like asylum or new opportunities in America, even though from the video that we had watched previously, a lot of people had trouble passing the test that are already US citizens.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I kind of said that there was a quote that said the very soil we stand on is common ground. So I thought that that linked back to ethnic nationalism because it was trying to like talk about how we all have like a past or like an ancestry to this soil. And then I was just thinking back onto the like the images it was showing too for ethnic nationalism. Like it was showing like cowboy hats, cowboy boots, the South, cities, the flag. Like it was trying to really pull these images that made us like Americans feel very united in this video.
Mhm. There's one thing that I just completely read over it. A line that I thought of freedom, um, was like the last line I think of the ad that says, "And there's hope on the road up ahead." Um, that I just kind of was like, that's what like we're just like headed towards freedom. Um, and yeah, that was it. That was just like a one thing I forgot to add.
Yeah, sorry, just to connect back to,
Yeah.
I also had a quote for freedom where it said, freedom is not the property of just the fortunate few, it belongs to us all. And I think that also links back to your quote, Erin, from Sullivan's essay about how, oh my gosh, I forgot the words, but it was just like how other people had been trampled on by people
Mhm.
higher up. So it's just reiterating again that like the ideas of America was to have this freedom and equality for everyone, no matter like who you are, where you're from.
Yeah. Does anyone else have anything?
Good.